want to focus on your art career and comic career. I'm not sure if they were intertwined. If you're, what were your initial dreams? Were you going to be a comic artist? Were you going to be a
Yeah,
commercial
pretty
artist?
much. Yeah, this all started basically when I was in first grade. This was obviously a little bit older. I was born in the mid '70s, and when I was in first grade, that was '79 to 1980. And as you can imagine, I was, at that time especially, I was very addicted to television. Um, and I did not care for school at all. And especially when it came to things like math and stuff like that, I could care less. And I did not do very well in school, and quickly found myself just wishing like I could watch cartoons while in school. But of course, you can't do that. But I did realize I could entertain myself while the teacher was talking by drawing all of my favorite characters on a piece of paper. And that was at least better than listening to the teacher talk. And so one day, my first grade teacher caught me just not paying attention and drawing like the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. And she scolded me in front of everybody for not paying attention and stuff. But then also was like, actually, that's really good. Like, do you want to be an artist when you grow up? And that's when it hit me. And I was like, oh, wait, you can do that? Yeah, because somebody has to draw all that crap that I watch, and that's when it all kind of started to congeal. And I remember going home and telling my mom, like, I've decided I'm 7 years old, but I've got it all figured out now. I'm going to be an artist, a cartoonist, something like that when I grow up. And my mom was just like, oh, no, you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, or, something
That's what my
responsible.
parents did too. Yeah, they're like,
Yeah.
art's not a career.
Yeah. But to my mom's credit, she was always very supportive of my art stuff, like very early on. As soon as they caught that I was into it and had something going with that, I immediately was enrolled into all sorts of local art classes and stuff like that. And so she always did try to nourish it, even though the entire time until I was a teenager was like, this is really not a good idea. Like, this cannot be your plan for life, But
I remember my parents were super into it, but they're like, it should be a hobby. You should have a real career.
That was always like, it should be something to fall back on, maybe. You have to have a real thing going. You can do this on the side.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, dude. Excuse me. Anyways, by the time I was a teenager, I mean, it was already way too late by then. And I didn't have any real prospects coming out of high school. I didn't do very good in high school either. I was a good student in the fact that most of my teachers loved me, but I just did really shitty in school because I just couldn't care less, especially by the time I was a senior in high school. Like, I was just into drugs and partying at that point, and being 18. But yeah, it still was like, if I'm gonna do anything out of here, I'm gonna be an artist. Mostly. I was around 13 years old. I decided I wanted to be a comic book artist specifically. Before that, I kind of wanted to be an animator or a news strip cartoonist. But then when I was 13, I picked up my first issue of Spider-Man, The Web of Spider-Man number 17, because he reminded me of Ultraman, which was one of my favorite characters from back in the day. And Spider-Man just looked so cool anyways. And I've always thought Spider-Man was cool.
Is that what kind of did it for you?
Yeah, it was just the cover was him fighting this one-off villain character who looked sick as fuck. His name was Magma. And he was just this big, half cyborg looking dude with giant spikes all over him. And he had an arm cannon that shot hot lava. Like, it was so ridiculous. And Spider-Man is fighting him on the cover. And then there was this huge thing that said, this is it. This is the end of the red suit. Because that was the year that the black suit happened. And so this was like the last issue of Web Spider-Man where he's going to be seen in red and blue. So I was like, wow, this looks really cool. It was in a 7-Eleven. I'll never forget. And I grabbed it. And I just went up to my mom. And I was like, can I get this? Because the one thing I always had over my mom as a kid was she hated spending money on toys and stuff like that. But if it was like reading material or some kind of book, she could not say no, because then I could always say, "Oh, what, don't you want me to be reading?" You know.
So parents did that with books, but comics didn't consider books.
No, my mom actually considered comics books because it's still reading, regardless. So, anyways, yeah, that afternoon I read that issue like 20 times in a row. Was super stoked on it, and then, like when I was in first grade, I came downstairs and said to my mom, "All right, I've got it all figured out now. At 13, we're done. We're going to be a comic book artist, and that's the end of the story." And she was even more like, "No, that's a terrible idea."
Well, I remember what really turned my mind around was Watchmen and the early Swamp Things like the Beset and Taliban.
Oh yeah.
Actually, I remember the thing that made me go, "Dude, this is for me." I mean, granted, I was 14, but I saw Faust. And like with Faust, like being so brutal and slicing people up, I was like, "Dude, this is what I got to do." I used to get Tim with like Vigil the black covers on it.
Dude. You got to get him on the show if you haven't already.
Yeah, Tim Vigil, yeah,
he's super cool, dude.
But I remember I get that, and like I said, it had the black covers, and he came in a bag, and you had to go get it from the comic shop, and like. I wasn't supposed to be able to purchase it, but I knew everybody at the comic shops that they'd like sell me issues, and it was awesome.
I gotta tell you then what also kind of like propelled me into wanting to be a comic book artist. I happened to be very lucky where I was born and raised, which was Plymouth, Michigan, and at that time, in our area is where Caliber Comics was started by Gary Reed.
Oh, I applied to them. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, all came from. Yeah, Vince Locke.
Yeah, the Crow
was a local. Yeah. Guy Davis was a local.
Yeah,
James O'Barr was local, and Gary Reed started Caliber in the back of his comic shop, Reader's Exchange, which is the shop that me and my friends used to go to all the time when we were kids, dude. It was, especially for the 80s, the coolest store you could possibly friggin' imagine. Not only was it a rare thing back then for comic shops to have back issues, this place had extensive back issues. Right. Not only that, they had a video arcade area, and the best thing, because this is totally unheard of in the 80s, they had a whole Japanese manga anime import section where they had like New Type magazine from Japan, all sorts of anime and tokusatsu and model making magazines from Japan, original untranslated manga and toys. And even the best thing of the store, they had a video rental section that was a humongous wall of nothing but bootleg anime from the 80s, dude. Untranslated, usually shitty tracking, but like you could get almost anything from that store, dude. They were just constantly like trading tapes and shit. And dude, and then, like I said, in the back of the store, these old goth punk rock kids are hanging out and making sick ass Crow comics and shit. Yeah. And we were like 13 years old, me and my friends. The manager would be like, we'd see these like scary punk rock dudes going in and out of the store, and we're like, what's going on there? What's going on there? And the manager, Chet, he would be like, "Yo, come here. Let me tell you. They're making comic books back there, man. We're making a publishing shit back there. Dude, it's going to be awesome." And yeah, that's where Caliber Comics came out of. By the back of my shop, dude, as a kid. And it was like awesome. So inspiring, too. Because then all I wanted to do was...
Where was this? Where was Caliber Comics in their origin?
What's that?
Where did Caliber Comics originate? What store was this?
Yeah, it was in Plymouth, Michigan, which is where I'm from. And then like he had a store in a neighboring town of Westland, Michigan, and the store was really large originally, and so he just had like a back area where they just, I guess, had a publishing, some sort of studio back there. I never saw it, but I just always saw them going in and out.
I remember first I lived in white trash northern Florida, and that's when I first saw like actual comic stores, like not just like 7-Eleven, but actual stores. Right.
Yeah.
And I remember I'd go there, and that was right when they had the independent explosion, like TMNT came out. which also kind of ruined the industry with all the hogwash and the flood
Yeah.
everywhere. But like all this stuff was coming out, like Kitchen Sink, Caliber, and there were independent artists that worked at the comic store. And I remember they were super nice, and that was the first time I found out about Zipatone. You
Yeah.
know, I found out like about lettering. You know, the
Right.
filmmaker for lettering, all that sort of stuff. Were there people that helped you, like in independent comic stores and things like
Uh,
that?
uh, Not exactly. I was actually, when this was happening, I was still pretty fucking young. Like I said,
Okay.
I was like 13, 14 when Caliber got started.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time I got into high school, they were still around and pumping stuff out. This is like in the midst of like the Dead World series,
Okay.
you know, and I remember and their
Which
headquarters
cough Walking Dead ripped off.
yeah, well, yeah their headquarters was in my town.
Okay.
And so I was always curious to just either start hanging out or, you know, what somehow trying to get in there. But I was always just too scared. I did, if I remember correctly, I remember writing a long ass submission letter and sending them some stuff one time. Also, before that, actually, now that I'm also thinking about that, I just came up with an old memory. When I was in middle school, I remember bringing some of my stuff to Chet, the manager of Readers Exchange, just to show him. Be like, hey, do you think you can share this to the guys in the pack? You know, and he was like, okay, maybe not, but you know, because you're fucking 14, but you know, you do have a lot of potential here, you know, keep it up kind of thing. Yeah, it wasn't until like I was actually in high school that I really started getting serious about wanting to be a comic artist. But what ended up happening was when I graduated, I did, which at the time was not was very frowned upon, but I recommend everyone getting out of high school do this, which is take at least 1 year off. I took 2. And all I did was play in a rock band and do a lot of LSD for those 2 years. And I worked a job. I worked a job at the local car wash. So I wasn't a complete degenerate, but I took 2 years off and it was the most healthiest thing I could have ever done because I needed to get like all the party out of me as a teenager before I could take anything else in life, with any kind of seriousness.
Yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, so at the end of those 2 years, then I finally was like, my band was breaking up. So I went to my mom and I was like, you know, I think, oh no, it was the idea came to me from another friend of mine from high school who had just moved out to New York to go to NYU. And I was telling him, like, I don't know what I want to do really, but I want to, you know, be a comic artist and shit. And he's like, well, fuck, why don't you come to New York and go to art school? We have tons of them. And I had never even considered leaving Detroit ever at that point because the idea just sounded too horrifying to me. But then I was like, when he said it with such a, you know, nonchalantness that I suddenly just was like, yeah, why don't I just go to New York? You know, what the fuck? So then once again, I just made an announcement to my mom. This was at 20 years old. And I was like, all right, I've got it figured out. I want to leave home and go to New York to art school. And at that point, my mom was like, anything to get you out of my house. So we worked on that. And then I left the next year. At 21, I got accepted into SVA, School of Visual Arts in Manhattan, and went there and did the full program. Unlike a lot of people before me, a lot of SVA people don't ever graduate and become very famous comic book people, such as Joe Quesada. He's probably their most famous example of, yeah, I went for like 2 semesters and I dropped out. Now look at me, I run Marvel. Dude, they almost had to kick me out of there at the end of 4 years. I was not ready. I was not ready to deal with life. And I was certainly not ready to be a professional artist yet. I knew at that point, they had taught me enough that I could see I was not ready. And I was like, no, make me leave. I need another year.
Isn't that the school that Bern Hogarth taught at?
Yeah, he helped start it. Him and
was he still there when you were there?
What's that?
Was he still there when you were there?
Oh no, I think he was long dead.
Okay.
I can't remember when he passed away, but yeah, and then it was Bern Hogarth and Oh God, I'm having a brain fart. Will Eisner also helped start the school.
Right.
And I got to meet him in it was either 97 or 98 at San Diego Comic-Con, because at that time, my buddies from SVA and I, 2 years in a row, we did the San Diego thing together. So much fun. I got crazy stories about that. But one year, I went, and Will Eisner was there. And though he wasn't teaching at the school anymore, he was, on the West Coast at that point, I think. But I went up to him and was just like, "Hey, I'm Jeff Zornow. I'm a student right now at SVA. I'm going to graduate next year, and I just really wanted to meet you." And goddamn, dude, Will Eisner's just like, "Oh, you're one of my SVA kids. Come here!" And he puts his arm around me, brings me behind his table, introduces me to his whole staff, and this is how he introduced me. He was like, "Hey, everybody, this is Jeff. He's one of my SVA kids." So they're all like, "Oh, you're at SVA? Hell yeah!" And they're shaking my hand and everything. Like, Will Eisner was so nice. It was my one interaction with him, but God, I'll never forget it. He was cool as hell.
Yeah, I always wanted to go to the Joe Kubert school because
a lot of my friends are from there. And
Yeah,
Jay Photos, who I work with, is from there and stuff. It was funny though, because at SVA we like really were into ourselves, and we were really into shitting on all the other art schools, especially the Joe Kubert school, because we were like, "Oh, it's just a clone factory. They just pump out Kubert clones and Jim Lee clones." and then honestly, when you look at a lot of the output from that school, that's kind of correct.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at Steve Bissett or John Tolman, I mean,
I know. Well,
they blew me away.
That's just us being fucking shitty kids. But
yeah.
Also, I meant to say before, when you were talking about being big on Steve Bissett from Swamp Thing and shit. Honestly, I did not know him initially from Swamp Thing. My first Steven Bissett comic was Gore Shriek #1, where he did the 3-page story. Yeah. In the very back, the Cottonmouth.
Okay.
That has stuck with me my entire life. Also, it's a brilliant example of how to do a 3-page story, which I try to do every year for the month of Halloween. Like all those artists like do like the 31-day challenge and they're doing a sketch every day.
Yeah.
Fuck that shit. I try to do a 3-page comic book challenge where I do a full 3-page black and white comic book specifically for the web with a beginning, middle, and an end within the month of October. And then hopefully by Halloween, I have a 3-page finished lettered and grayscale comic.
Which I think is more impressive than a sketch, because a sketch
can
go all different directions.
Yeah. That's why I do it. And I tell everybody else, you're all wimps for doing these sketches. Try to do a 3-page comic, motherfucker.
Sketch feels almost like the easy way out to me.
It's so easy, dude. Who can't just crank something out in the morning?
It's like, oh, you like this? I'll do the thing that I draw all the time for you. Here you go.
Exactly. Plus, like, so many of the sketches, like, if they don't look like you just jerked off, then it's like way too involved. And you're like, nah, you probably did these months ago and have just been waiting to release them. Like, I would love to actually create a new definition of the term sketch, because my understanding of the definition and current artists' understanding of the definition are two very different things.
Well, I remember another school I really wanted to go to was VCU, because Mike Kaluta went there, and I'm a big Mike Kaluta fan too.
Yeah.
So, did you guys shit on VCU as well, or was that too far away?
Not really. We mostly, if we weren't shitting on the Kubert school, we would shit on Parsons.
Because
nobody could even define what that school was even for. Like, what are you going there for? Is it an art school? Is it a science institute? We don't understand.
No, I remember I talked to Parsons, I talked to Cooper Union, and talked to FIT. Like, there's the whole, like,
actually, that's funny. You mentioned FIT. FIT is the only school that SVA was cool with.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we were all about the fashion kids, dude. They were cool as fuck.
Wow, yeah. No, I went to art school in Virginia, and then I came here, and I came to New York, and I went to Portfolio Day trying to get a job.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, FIT really liked my work, but I was thinking, oh, they're just fashion. Why, what does this have to do with, like, illustration?
Yeah.
but I guess we're getting more into that, or I don't know. Like I met a bunch of people from FIT that don't do fashion; they do like awesome illustrations.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I'd actually looked into maybe doing extracurricular classes over
Mhm.
at FIT, but it just would have been too much money at the time, so
Yeah,
I didn't. But I was looking into it. That's a cool friggin' school.
yeah, yeah.
Also,
No,
the one
I
great
went to
thing about
community
the
college because
reason
that's
I
what I
wanted to
could
go to
afford.
SPA was their staff at the time. We
Uh-huh.
had Klaus Jansen, who ended up becoming one of my major mentors, Joe Orlando, who ended up becoming like my Yoda, like Walt Simonson, who to this day is still one of my dear mentors as well. And
Right.
Carmine Infantino, Salamandola. We had so many great old school. Oh, Gene Coleman was one of my teachers over there. I mean, goddamn, it was really awesome. And being able to get to know these guys and like Klaus Jansen and Walt Simonson especially,
I just
I
interviewed
became very
Walt
close with.
recently. He's a nice
What's that?
guy. I just interviewed Walt recently. He's a nice guy. He
Yeah,
has
I
a lot
know.
of info.
That's
Yeah.
why everybody calls him Uncle Walt. Like he's everybody's uncle. He's always so happy. Like he's one of the best dudes I've legit ever known in my entire life.
so what was your start in like getting published, like getting stuff out there?
Well, what happened was after I graduated, and I graduated in '99, and almost immediately started working at St. Mark's Comics,
Okay.
which I thought
I worked at a tattoo shop
thought
right down the
would be
street.
a great idea because I knew how many industry people would shop and hang out there
Right.
and all that kind of stuff. And so I figured, well, while I'm trying to break into the industry, why don't I work at the place where they all go?
Right.
Oh God, that was such a terrible decision in so many ways because it was such a hard job. You have no idea. And like, I just did a signing last night at St. Mark's Comics for the new issue of Sweetie Candy Vigilante #1 that I've illustrated. And I was telling everybody last night, working at St. Mark's when we did at the time that I was there from '99 to 2009, almost to the day, 10 full years. And I was like,
Well,
going
that's about.
working
I
at
was in
St. Mark's.
Andromeda, right down the street. Do you remember Andromeda,
Oh
the
yeah,
tattoo shop? I worked
yeah,
in
yeah.
there probably about the same time you worked at St. Mark Comics.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I was mostly at his other shops, the Brooklyn and the
Okay.
Chambers Street one, because
Okay.
I have personality clashes with the owner. But anyways, I was saying last night, I was like working at St. Mark's. It was kind of like going through the Marines or something because I can meet people who have worked there that I've never met before, and we will
Okay.
give each other hugs like we are the newest best friends because we know we both just went through some hellish shit
You both
together.
share the post-traumatic,
Oh yeah,
PTSD.
exactly. So and yeah, it was. I was very glad when they reopened a year ago in Industry City in Brooklyn, and the new store is friggin' beautiful, and that whole area is really nice. So yeah, we did a signing there last night. I finally got to see the new digs, and it was cool to see my old boss and all my old friends again, all that good stuff.
What's a comic that you have coming out? The one that you
Oh,
decided
right
for?
now, actually, I have a couple. Right now, it's Sweetie Candy Vigilante #1, which is coming out through Dynamite Comics,
Okay.
and then also this month was the first issue of Lucio Fulci's Escape from the Beyond,
Yeah,
which
that's
is a
awesome.
comic sequel to Lucio Fulci's The Beyond,
Right.
coming out through Avon Press. Issue 2 is finished. It's just going to be a 3-issue miniseries, and the From Beyond book is pretty cool because it's one of the few things where I am illustrating and coloring myself, which I don't get to do enough of in comics. But I love to be able to color myself because apparently very few people are good at coloring me. J Photos is one exception, but like I've been treated so badly by colorists, and I'm known, when I do my own stuff, especially album covers and stuff, like I'm known for having these bright, vibrant colors. That's why right now I've got UV light on me because I love fluorescent colors and Dayglow shit, like Basil Gogos all the way.
Right.
Whenever I think about
Oh,
what
he's
I'm
an
going to
awesome
color
artist. I'm a
something,
big
I
fan
just
of
look
his
up
stuff.
Basil Gogos.
Yeah.
What would he do? Then that's what I'll do. That's the way you should color everything. Everything should look like a Basil Gogos painting. God, this world would be so much prettier.
A lot more interesting too. Yeah, and I'm a big fan of his work.
Yeah.
But so I remember Dynamite. It seems like Dynamite when they began, they were a lot smaller and they were mostly doing stuff they were like buying the license for stuff. But now they got really big. Like Garth Ennis is doing stuff for them.
Yeah.
Like I don't know much about their evolution. Do you know like
I can't talk a whole lot about the publishing company themselves because I'm not super familiar. This is the first time I've done stuff through them, I think.
mm-hmm.
I think I've done some covers for them in the past, but and honestly, we the writer co-creator of the book, John Cafiero, he's like the manager for the Misfits and the singer of Osaka Pop Star. He's got the whole punk rock thing going on. That's how I know him, from working from the Misfits. And so it was like, God, I think now it's been almost 5 or 6 years now we've been working on this book. He had it written in a first issue done like years ago that he was just kind of trying to do on the side, but his artist like somehow disappeared from the face of the earth. And so he came to me and was like, hey, do you want to do the other issues of this thing I already got started? At the time, I think I needed a gig or whatever. And I was like, well, it's John, why not? And so, but like, I had no idea if this book was ever going to come out. We ended up doing 6 issues. And he was like, well, I'll just do with it what I do with it, try to get it out there. But and then I hadn't spoken to him after the pandemic for at least a year. And then like last July, he just out of nowhere was like, hey, we got a publisher with Dynamite. Hey, can you do a cover overnight? We got all this stuff going on now. And I was like, life has changed. I got a new job. We gotta catch up.
Well, it seems like it was kind of like a rocky road with the companies. Like if you weren't Marvel or DC, it's like it's really hard for people to like break out.
For sure.
It feels like kind of Image kind of finally broke that barrier.
Yeah, and I have to say I've been really lucky in my career so far. I mean, I've been working pretty consistently now for over 15 years. But as of yet, I have yet to work for both Marvel or DC. But somehow I've lasted this long just working with the independents and doing other, I also do a lot of, metal horror stuff, which is also what I'm known for. But yeah, I mean, I've been very lucky with all that.
Well, I know you did stuff for Fright Rags at one point.
Yeah.
How long did you do that?
Like, get off the ground back in the day.
Okay.
As it were. I was like their first regular artist.
Okay. What, doing mainly T-shirts for them?
Yeah. I just, Ben and I hooked up very early through a friend of his who had also commissioned me for a T-shirt for his company. But then when Ben saw the shirt, he was like, oh my God, you got to give me this guy's info. And then Ben and I just went off. And then when we did the Fulci Zombie versus Shark shirt, because I realized nobody had ever done that shirt. And I went to him one day, it was like, nobody's done Zombie versus Shark. We have to do this tonight before someone else thinks of it. And we did it so fast and everything. And then it turned out that I famously drew 2 left hands on the zombie. Even though one is like detached, it's still obviously a left hand or whatever. Like, and once I pointed it out, or some people pointed it out to me, I went to Ben. I was like, "Yo, we can't print this yet. I have to fix it. There's 2 left hands." And Ben was like, "Dude, Fulci wouldn't have fixed it. Fuck it, let's leave it." I was like, "All right." So now, and then it was used in that movie. This is the end. With those comedian dudes and shit about the end of the world. Yeah. The one dude's wearing Zombie versus Shark through the whole thing. Because they were big Fright Rags nerds, so that was cool.
I still have your career shirt.
Amazing for that shirt and for my what do you call it? Internet presence at that time. Because everybody was like, oh, you're the Zombie versus Shark guy. Hell yeah.
So is that like the first big gig that was like a paying gig for you? Was there other stuff before that or after that?
You know what? Now I'm thinking about it, actually, Fright Rags probably was my first like regular paying art gig where like I was basically doing a shirt for them almost every month for a while, and then that really helped not just build a portfolio, but then to be able to explain to potential clients and stuff like, oh, I got a consistent gig doing this, look how professional I am, with this gig. And so then, it gives them the confidence to hire you, and all that stuff. So yeah, it definitely helped put me up that climbing ladder situation.
And what did you evolve to that? I remember when I was at Deep Six with Paul Acker, you did one of the shirts for us. But what were you doing at the time besides just Fright Rags? Did you like diversify into something else? I remember you did the Godzilla comic for a
Yeah,
while.
I've always been kind of working on several different types of things at a time. There's usually at least one comic book going on, and then I'll have like a handful of either t-shirt or album cover gigs through a month, or like a cover for like a DVD or something, or a horror movie or something like that. And so I always have at least one kind of like ongoing gig if I can, with just a bunch of little supplemental, smaller gigs happening
Okay.
around it. And that's how I've always structured my career. Because like I said, I can't survive on just one comic book alone, especially these days with the page rates that they pay. But when you got a comic book and then you can do a couple of shirts or a couple of album covers or whatever it is, then it all works out pretty fine. So,
Have you done any book covers?
for an actual like book, not yet, actually.
Okay. Yeah, because a lot of like horror authors and stuff get interviewed for my podcast, and I know that
Right.
they always need somebody who does book covers. So
Yeah,
I
no,
know
I
your
haven't
stuff
done an
looks pretty awesome.
actual cover for a book that has just words in it yet.
So if it was your preference, what would you do? Would it be comic books? Would it be
Yeah, comic books are my thing. It's my favorite thing. And if I had my druthers, I'd be just working on my very own books right now, writing and drawing my own book. I'm currently writing and drawing my own book, just kind of slowly on the side whenever I can get a chance to do it. And I hope to maybe have it finished and do a Kickstarter maybe at the end of next year or 2024.
okay?
It's going to be called Space Dragon Bastriga. And it's just going to be like a ridiculous action book with a giant cyborg space dragon that comes and attacks Earth. And then I got a couple of heroes and all this stuff. I don't want to give too much into it just in case it does fall.
Well, do you have a website that people can follow so they can
No.
like?
Oh, well, I have a store envy site,
Okay.
and I do have a website, but it hasn't been updated in a couple of years, and I forgot my password to get into it. And so I've also been very lazy and forgetful of dealing with it. But
So what
I
they should
usually
look at
just
your
send people
Facebook is that
as an official website. I usually just send them to my Store Envy shop,
right?
which has a lot of my stuff on there anyway. It's just Zornow must be destroyed at storeenvy.com. Sorry, my cat Birdie the Taliban has joined us. You can't see him, but he's right in front of me at my feet.
What is it?
Oh, it's Zornow must be destroyed at storeenvy.com. Store Envy is STORENVY.com.
Do you still have any of the illustrations, like the career illustration you did for Fright Rags?
I don't have that as a print right now, but it's something that does get reprinted every so often. So it's like in a rotation. I can always sell that Critters print.
Well, I had the print and I had it up in my shop, and our shop burned
Nice.
down, so I don't have that anymore.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Well, I'll let you know as soon as I get that one going again.
Yeah, awesome. So, what are you working on now? Like, are you working on comic books more? Because I know that you've done comics on and off.
Right now, I have my main comic book gig right now is Gorgon, original graphic novel series that I've been doing with Jay Photo, some Mark Kidwell, the 68 crew. We tried an experiment last year where we created a full length graphic novel, and then instead of going through Diamond distributors and all that, or a publisher and any of that stuff, we decided to completely do it on our own and release it as a Kickstarter campaign just to see how it would fly. And it did stupendously. So then we tried a second one, and that did even better than the first one. So now we're on our third Gorgon campaign, which just ended yesterday. But when we started the third campaign on the very first night, we made our goal in like 10 hours. So we're gonna ride the Gorgon train for as long as that train will run. So I'm planning to start the third book sometime next week, and we hope to have it out like in the middle of next year, or like in the spring maybe. And so I'm working on Gorgon books with Jay and Mark, and then I'm
Well,
also
more like graphic novels, like a collection.
yeah,
work.
they're like actually I have one right here. I forgot. Here, it's that's it. Can you see that? And then it's like several pages.
Yeah,
awesome. And then you can get like all kinds of like cool editions that come in a box and come with like little toys and things like that. But and then in addition to the Gorgon book, like I said, there's a Sweetie Candy Vigilante thing which is now coming out, and then I'm also working on an independent horror movie, which is sort of like my day job right now. I can't talk about the movie and I can't tell you what it's called yet, but I'm basically like the official artist of this movie. And so I'm doing a comic book adaptation of the movie itself, while also doing like any kind of promotional artwork. And eventually, once they start filming, we're going to be doing like storyboard stuff for them and all that kind of stuff.
Has
it
been picked up? Like, definitely money's going into the movies.
Yeah. They came to me. They're like independent filmmakers that I had met at Monster Mania years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to me basically like, we've got our funding, we've got all our money, like we want you to make it look cool. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so then also in addition to all that, then I'm also doing pretty regular now. It's almost like every other week I'm doing a movie poster / Blu-ray cover for a director friend of mine, James Balsamo, out in LA. He's like the new what would I call him? He's almost like the new Tromaville guy, like, but out in LA. He just pumps out these movies left and right, and I'm always doing the covers and posters for him. So that's basically kind of like my gig right now.
That's awesome. What happened with Godzilla? Weren't you doing Godzilla for a while?
Yeah. Well, IDW lost the license for a couple of years, and then they got it back like last year or the year before. I did do a Godzilla cover early this year, which is right here. Well, and this just came out like 2 months ago, I think. But it's Godzilla Rivals, and this is him versus King Ghidorah, and it was a really cool book. But yeah, it was one of the cooler Godzilla covers I've done. So I am still on Godzilla. I'm also doing Godzilla t-shirt designs for cavitycolors.com.
Okay.
Which is another kind of like Fright Rags.
I'm wearing Cavity Colors shirt right now. Yeah, they live.
Yeah. Aaron is the shit, dude. He's awesome. And so I've been working on his Godzilla line.
Okay. Awesome. And what they're doing, are they doing shirts for the Godzilla line?
Yeah. Official like
shirts. Full merchandising and everything.
Yeah.
So I remember I had I think it was Mothra, but it was an illustration you did. I had that up at the shop that burned down, unfortunately. But I thought it was a cool illustration.
Thank you.
No, I like your stuff. So, do you have any other projects going on right now? Like you said, you have a million things going on at one time.
Yeah, I mean, really, like I said, I got the movie, I got the Gorgon books, and whenever a Godzilla thing appears, and movie posters from my buddy James, and that's plenty. Trust me, that's plenty, dude. And then in my spare time, this is my arcade room. I've been slowly turning this little room into a do-it-yourself arcade place. But that's basically what I got going on. Hanging out with my little birdie here. Although you can't see him. He's right next to the computer.
So I just want to go back to like when you first got out of art school, was it like you're trying to like test the waters to like figure out what was going to be like?
No, getting out of art school, living in New York City, basically you're just trying to survive after that, right? And not lose your shit and have to go home. You know what I mean? Not have to move back home to your parents.
Right.
So I just basically busted my ass. First, just make rent every month. And oh, that was the book I forgot to mention. So also when I graduated, I just before we graduated, me and some friends from art school had started this independent comic called Agnes Quill, which was like kind of like a gothy mystery book about this like Victorian-esque steampunky world and city called Legerdemain, where this detective named Agnes Quill, this teenage female detective, had this power to speak with ghosts and the dead, and she would use have them help her solve these mysteries and stuff. So we made a full length graphic novel with like short stories in it, and
Okay.
that took us. Well, it took us like 2 years maybe to draw and write the whole thing, and then another like 5 to finally sell it to a publisher. But then we finally sold it to Slave Labor Graphics, like in the midst of the Johnny the Homicidal Maniac era.
Which is awesome. I love
Yeah,
Johnny.
yeah, which is
Yeah.
where you want to kind of be if you have a
Yeah.
goth black and white comic book at the
Right.
time. So they picked it up finally, and then
I want to know how they decided the guy who did Johnny should do Invader Zim.
yeah,
They're like, hey, we're a kids channel. Why don't we have the guy who did Johnny do Invader Zim?
exactly. But yeah, so we got that book out, and then like I think either the year it came out and was published or the following year, Paramount Pictures grabbed the movie rights to it. And so that gave us a little bump.
Yeah.
Even though they never did anything with it, for 2 years, we were getting goddamn Paramount money, dude.
Right.
Let me tell you, dude, those were 2 really good years for me. I was getting this, what felt like completely free money and a lot
right.
of it.
Right.
I was like, holy crap. And that was the year I really got into cocaine.
I remember one artist I like a lot is Mike Mignola, who did Hellboy.
Yeah, I know.
I remember when he was doing Hellboy, and it was kind of like, it was a little bit more obscure. I think Image Comics put it out, but it wasn't like on one of those big labels that everybody got.
Yeah.
And then Hollywood came calling. And once he got that Hollywood money, it's like he doesn't really do the storyboards as much anymore.
No, yeah.
Which is a shame because I love his work. I know he's really down on his work, but I think it's awesome.
No, he's actually, I kind of knew him. He lived for a little while in right around the area of the St. Mark's Chambers Street store when I worked there. Mm-hmm. And so for at least a good portion of a year, he was one of our regular customers.
Oh yeah.
He would come in and hang out and talk with us every week, once a week, and I'd show him my artwork and stuff. Like, what do you think? What do you think? And I'll never forget, I have this old illustration that I did in the mid 2000s, and I still keep it around here and there because it is pretty freaky. It's like a bat, but the body is a human face, and it's got a rat like half in its mouth, flying around, and it's got these fucked up like glowy eyes. And I showed that to Mike Mignola one time, and he just was like, "Fuck you, that's scary." He's like, "I don't like that at all. That is freaking me out, dude." And I was like, "Yes, I scared Mike Mignola."
the like it's all stuff's like based on gothic. Like even when he does like Batman, is fucking dark and creepy.
Yeah.
So yeah, good job there. So do you have anybody else that there was a big influencer that you want to give a shout out to?
Well, I think right now is still my very favorite artist today, or Junji Ito over in Japan, and Hideshi Hino.
Okay.
Classic horror manga artists.
Okay.
Hideshi Hino is known for doing the Panorama of Hell and Hell Baby. And my favorite book by him is this book called The Red Snake. It is one of the most awesome horror comics I've ever read. And then also Junji Ito, just because he's like what I consider like the modern horror guy, and his books also, and his artwork just so freakishly horrifying. And reading Uzumaki or Tomie for the first time. I was like, finally, a comic book that actually scares the shit out of me. Like, this is great. I love this guy. I want to meet him someday more than anything. Him and Hideshi Hino. Hideshi Hino actually follows me on Twitter, and he's a very cool dude. I've been able to speak to him on Twitter before. I got him into Skinny Puppy, the band.
Talk about doing acid and listen to something.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, Skinny Puppy has been one of my all-time favorite bands since I was like 15.
What's this song, Warlock?
Yeah, that's one of my favorites, actually.
Yeah, I remember like we go to gospel. We were all like little punk rockers, but like it was DC, and there weren't too many kind of alternative kids. All the goth kids, and the punk rockers, and the skin. Everybody who was like different would all hang out at the same place. They played like Skinny Puppy and Front 242 and Ministry.
We had a couple of clubs when I was a teenager in Detroit and Ann Arbor that we would go to. Similar situation.
Yeah,
and I've since. Being into horror and becoming a comic artist, I've since done a lot of horror conventions with Nivek Ogre from Skinny Puppy, and I've in years been able to meet him and become very friendly with him.
Is he cool?
Oh my god! As far as rock stars go, he has got to be the most angelic, wonderful human being you could ever hope to meet, dude. Seriously, like when they always say don't meet your heroes, they're not talking about Nivek Ogre. You totally want to meet Nivek Ogre. He is the coolest human being on the planet.
You might not, especially as an artist, you might not want to meet Danzig, because I heard that Frank was in.
I've met Danzig several times. Yeah, I get it. I get it.
I love his music, but I don't know him as a person. Danzig's going to be
one of my all-time go-tos, and the Misfits and Sam Hain. Yeah. Especially now that it's October, I just bust out the Sam Hain and the Bauhaus constantly.
Well, I saw the Danzig Legacy Tour back in like 2014. It was awesome. It was like Danzig and Sam Hain and the Misfits. Yeah.
No, I was at when Danzig did that tour. I'm forgetting the year now, but it wasn't too long ago. What was it? Maybe 2017 or something like that. He was doing a Danzig tour, but then the week of Halloween, it was 6 Sam Hain dates.
Okay.
And one was in New York. And I was like, I don't care how much this costs. We are doing this. We are doing the fucking full Sam Hain reunion. And yeah, I was thankfully dating a girl at the time, so I was able to go with somebody and everything. And it was goddamn, that was one of the best shows I've ever seen in my life, dude.
No, his voice was great. And I remember like people would tell me that like because his hair is like kind of getting thinner, so when he starts sweating, it looks like Crypt Keeper.
Yeah, I guess.
So he'd be singing, and then he'd get embarrassed. He'd run in the back, and he'd blow dry his hair. But when I saw him, apparently he didn't care anymore. So he just like slick it back and just kept saying it. It was a good show. It's really good show.
I saw him with the OG Misfits a couple years ago too, and that was sick in Jersey. That was sick.
I'm a big fan of the Misfits. But all right, so I want to keep you here all day, but is there any way that people get a hold of you? You should definitely, hype up that website or do something with this stuff that people get a hold of you.
Zornow must be destroyed at storenvy.com. Storenvy is just STORENVY.com. And then I'm on Twitter at Zornow13 on Twitter. I'm on Facebook at Jeff Zornow on Facebook. And I have Instagram. I have 2 Instagrams. There's Jeff Zornow on Instagram. And then there's also the Art of Jeff Zornow on Instagram. So you can find me at all those places. I don't do TikTok because I don't do TikTok. Oh,
you don't do the little.
Somebody just handed me one of my flyers, but I don't know how well you can even see that. Anyways, thank you so much for having me, Dan. It's good to see you again, bro.
Yeah, it's been a while. But good to see you. Thanks for doing this interview.
No problem, my friend. Anytime.